Hello, hello. How's it going, everybody? A little bit. I changed some things. I expected this to be flipped. Maybe I didn't change the scene. Anyways, how's it going, everybody? I've been slowly updating things on the stream, and for a few reasons. One of which is that I want to start bringing on some more guests, and we did a stream planning session. I guess it was 2 weeks ago, and there's some topics that I want to cover that I think would be great to bring somebody in to help out with it. So I've been moving around stream things a little bit to make that a little bit easier. So things are happening, but is that? Oh, maybe it is right. Maybe it is right. Maybe I was just rotated and it's throwing me off. Anyways, today, kind of a coincidence, really. We are looking at Astro and Starlight. Starlight is a theme built on top of Astrojs, which helps provide support for like documentation websites. And part of the reason we are doing this exploration today is because I want to get familiar with it, because we're looking at, well, more than looking at this point. We're in the process of switching over to using it for the Tari documentation site. But there's also a couple of other use cases I'm interested in as well. So it felt like a good time to do it. The coincidence is that Starlight is officially released now. It was kind of like an alpha beta thing now, and I think it's now more solidified, or they're launching it today. And tomorrow is version 3.0 of Astro. So coincidence, I wanted to look at it, and they're announcing things. I'll take it. Hey Chris, how's it going? So let's go ahead and hop over. Yeah, okay, I did get it right. So my camera's not mirrored anymore, which I guess I kind of like. I don't mind it. But I think this is gonna make it a little bit easier for having guests. I'll probably make my camera a little bit smaller, but then whoop, I'm backwards now. I forgot. I'm gonna put like chat interaction type things down below here. We get a little bit more widescreen. You can see I still have not actually planned for this space to use it. Very tired, very sore. Not allowed in my apartment this week because of heat stuff. Oh yeah. Not fun. Not fun. Whenever you're in a place that's not the space that you've established, it's hopefully that goes quick and ends up being relatively painless. What is this the corner of my desk? Yeah, that's the corner of my desk. I might want to cut that off. Okay, so we got a bit of a hard stop today. What we're gonna do is we're gonna try out just a straight Astro site, play around with it, get a feel for how it works. I've seen it in use, and I have an idea of how it works already, but can dig in a little bit more than the high level that I'm currently aware of. And then we're gonna try Starlight. I don't know how. I think it's well, we'll just Google. We'll Google. It'll be fine. There. They also launched on Product Hunt, so that's fun. Getting started. I think it's very similar. Yeah, it's just a template. So we'll do a straight, probably minimal Astro site as the first option, and then we'll come back and try it with the template on there. And I want to see how these templates are wired up and how we'll be able to like deviate from what that template is, which is sort of the pain point that I've always found with templates or themes or whatever you want to qualify it as. What is Astrojs? That's actually a real good place to start. Thank you for that question. So Astrojs is a newer static site generator. Sometimes you'll see it abbreviated as SSG. The sort of dichotic verb compared to that is the SSR, or server-side rendering. So you have static site generation and server-side rendering. The static site generation tends to happen in a CI process. Generally, you run something like a Webpack build or a Vite or whatever build tool you or happen to be using. It builds a bunch of assets, and then those assets, generally HTML, JSS, CSS, you can put those basically wherever. You could throw them up on a CDN. Hosts like Netlify are they sort of tune things to have that developer experience to work with that well. And it gives you a lot more flexibility than in hosting, rather than relying on the need to have a server. So there's lots of ways you can actually serve the content. CDN, you could actually serve it still with a server. But the downside is that it's tends to be much more static. And, so everything has trade-offs. That downside is a little bit overcome by the fact that a lot of these static site generators now are reliant on JavaScript frameworks, React, Vue, pretty much all the big. I think Svelte has one too. Have a static site generator that is like built on top of React or built on top of Vue, one or many. And then this gives you a little bit more of the client-side interaction, which gives you a little bit more of the feeling of dynamicism rather than just a static site, just straight HTML. But it's still not like perfectly dynamic. And some of them have sort of like gone into a little bit hybrid. Next.js is a little bit of everything at this point. And they tend to get a lot of the new React type features. So you'll see features that other frameworks haven't really established yet. They're already starting to like push on. There's trade-offs and everything. But the interesting bit with Astro is that they're a little bit more of like a meta framework in which it's less reliant on a specific front-end framework for the DX writing your actual like view layer. They have I believe it's a .astro file, and you can effectively use any framework, and we'll dig into this. We can effectively use any framework like React, Vue, what have you, as an option to be like the view part of the page. And that's not a decision that you need to make site-wide. You can have like one page be Vue and one page be React, which would be a little bit chaos in my mind. But the option's there. So it's a kind of a unique framework that it puts its foot in a lot of different ecosystems, which is different than other frameworks tending to subscribe, like VuePress or Gatsby.js was highly reliant on React, and then got some interaction with Preact, but Preact is sort of a copy of React. So long story short, this is a, I gotta always remember it's backwards now. This is a website builder of the static site generation subtype. And specifically, what we're looking at is the within Astrojs they have the themes, and a theme is like components and CSS, which is like design layers to give you more of a site than just a kind of a blank page or like a deeper starting point. And Starlight is their official theme to handle documentation websites, which is something that Tori is switching over to for the next version of the site. No, thank you, Chrome. I don't care right now. I think I got it now. Yeah, we tried to look at this the other day, and I was thinking it was next.tori.app, but it's beta.tori.app. So this is actually Starlight.js. I think there's many things. If you have visited the currently the main Tori site, that's done with Docusaurus. There's a lot of crossover, but it's a little bit more of a lift and shift, and then we're going to continue adding from there. And this is also specifically for 2.0. So that's the intent is that's going to be the hard switch. So let's try Astrojs. We are going to straight away just run this command. Hi, Kitty. Should we say hi to Bamboo? Come on up. Say hi to chat. Come on. Come on. There we go. I zoomed out the camera a little bit, so now you can see the kitty. Or at least a little bit better. Well, hold down our tails so this stays YouTube appropriate. Okay. Why is... I'm covering the bottom of the terminal. That's gonna get a little bit annoying. I think I'm gonna have to do something like this. I feel like I need to put something there then, though. All right, where do we want to create a new project? Let's call it Astro Plane. Include sample files. Use blog template. Are these checkboxes? I guess we'll just go with the recommended. Ooh, I like the gradient status bar thing. Please don't click the green screen. Install dependencies, sure. So I did specifically run this with npm. It doesn't say anything about yarn. If we click on getting started, does it give us additional options? Yeah, it does. Okay. I don't mind that. Do you plan to write TypeScript? Yeah, sure. Let's do it. Sure. And initialize a new Git repository. Yeah, we can do that. Go ahead. All right. So now we should have Astro Plane. Let's make things a little bit bigger here. Close, close, close. There we go. Right. So we got some VS Code things set up, which is kind of nifty. They have a specific Astro thing, which is kind of cool. I don't know that I'm keen on using that. I prefer to use the command line to start things. And we've got a bunch of commands. Go ahead and open this in a nicer looking view. Seasoned astronaut, delete this file. Have fun. Nice. So project structure, we have a public src and package JSON. Yeah, so they've got this bespoke like .astro or .md files. Okay. File name based routing. There's nothing special. That's where you put any components. Makes sense to me. Okay. I like that they have this command in here, because there's always some situations where when you run something with the dev server, it acts one specific way, but when you build it, little things behind the scenes change, and you always get like these weird situations where there's a specific use case that looks a little bit different when it's built, and having that command available to easily run it is kind of nice. I like that they put that in there. So I guess we just do npm run dev and we'll check it out. I do have an alias, so anytime you see nr, that's npm run, and it is started at localhost 3000. So there we go. We've got the Astro site. And what we got in here is just a bunch of links, and they, as we mentioned before, they have a bunch of themes. So this might be something that we can give it a shot to. But let's stick here and check everything out. Integrations. Interesting. And this is going to be the bits that are going to be real interesting for me personally. Is there support for like MDX, and some other things are like images are always kind of a pain to deal with. So what is their expectation there is always interesting to see. Anything can really build an HTML file or an HTML file that bootstraps some JavaScript. But all the more involved bits is what really makes a framework interesting. Wow. Okay. Folder structure. So they said components, doesn't matter what you put in there. You can see we've got these like bespoke .astros. This, we can see it's not actually highlighting, and that is probably a big part of the reason that we want to, or they recommend this specific extension. And I probably closed all the recommendations when I first opened this, so you know that's great. Is there a way that we can? Remember if there's a way that we can here recommended. Great. Yeah, let's go ahead and install that. So this may be one of those situations where if you're using something like, you know, some other IDE other than VS Code, this might be a little bit more of a pain point. Is it basically has its own file type here. We have TypeScript, and we specify the actual props that are coming in with TypeScript versus. I don't mind that. That's not too much overhead there. We've got some HTML with the styles in line. And the cards. We look at our index. We are pulling in some .astro files. They've got a style. It's very light on the actual like markup. And they have some hard-coded cards. And SVG, what is that SVG? Okay, the background SVG, I guess. And then a layout. So all of our styling here is done with CSS straight away and style tags. I don't mind it. I don't know that there's much more that we actually need to explore here. This is very... I would consider this pretty straightforward. While we're here, I'm just going to reload this so this goes away. I don't like that those notifications. So I think I don't know that we're going to get into integrations much. Like they've got things like this Astro Tailwind. I suspect that if we add some templates or themes, that they'll come hooked up with these integrations. So anything that we would specifically care about, I hope we have like, you know, some of these plugins just included straight away. I am curious what the official plugins look like though. So they've got an image. They've got these like top level, like work with specific components. Use lit components. And then here's that Starlight JS we were talking about. Alpine JS, Dino, MarkDoc. Okay. Let's take a look at what does the CSS and UI look like. Icons, story block, Astro compress. Okay. 17 pages. So I think this is probably one of those situations where you'll end up combining a bunch of these together, which is probably why it's worth checking out themes. The idea being that a bunch of these are basically included out of the box. I am going to specifically look at React because I have a little bit more familiarity with it. What are we feeling? I think we just give one of these a shot. I do have Tailwind on a couple sites, so I think we'll probably just prefer that as far as CSS goes. I am curious what. Well, let's check out one of these. If we pull in Tailwind is like a CSS library, and for the most part, it's just shipping ideally a purged CSS file where we're only using the parts of that CSS framework that we're actually deploying on the site. So there, as far as integration with CSS, there might not be too much interest. It might not be too interesting if we just look at Tailwind based site. I think we're gonna look at like Astrowind. Serverless podcast solution. Interesting. So another Tailwind CSS. This one's Tailwind CSS. It seems that Tailwind is pretty popular. Another one with Tailwind. None of these are saying any other framework, which is another Tailwind. Oh, and they've got paid ones in here too, which is pretty interesting. So like if we look at this one, what is this using for CSS? Is it going to help us out here? No. This is using Tailwind. I want to find, we'll try Astrowind. I want to find another one though while we're here. That's not using Tailwind. No, that's another Tailwind. All right, do they have? Tailwind is like literally okay here. Post CSS, I guess. I suppose that's probably the other thing that I would. Well, I mean, you could probably just write straight CSS and the style tags if you're gonna use, as opposed to using post CSS. What's this look like? This is also using Tailwind. Wow. I mean, you can use post CSS with Tailwind, so like that's not terribly surprising. But here, Sass. I completely missed that before. What does that look like? Astro paper. Oh. Astrowind is that the same Sass I'm thinking about? All right, let's try Astrowind. Let's try Astrowind and then and go from there. And we can see it's using the Tailwind integration. It's got an RSS feed, MDX support, image optimization, sitemap, open graph tags, which is nice, and then analytics. I don't really need that in there, but this feels like a good place to, or a good one to test out. Most start and forked Astro theme. the forked part just sounds a little bit weird to me. So how do we get it? It's frequently asked questions. Why? Maybe it's on their main site here. Oh, I mean, this is just the demo site. So how do you use it? Interesting. So if we go ahead and just run our Astro create command again, was there an option for templates? If we do Astro win test, when you just clone that repo, I'm not sure. Is there a? I guess it says it's a public template. What do you need, kitty? Come on up. Why are we being so needy right now? Come on up. You can sit on my lap. Yeah, they've got like a template within this create Astro. Okay, a little bit much. Stay down on my lap, please. So what is used? Okay, I guess blog template actually creates a. This is its own template. So Astro. Yeah, and that's okay. So there's like a. This is just like a generic blog. Looks like. I thought there was a way you could do. Let's try the dash help. That's not what I wanted. Dash help. Yeah, so there's a template. Dash template, and then you just have to know the name, I guess. Ah! I don't want that. It'll be slowly covered by. Let's fix that real quick here. Oh, my goodness, kitty. There we go. I don't know if you can hear her on the mic, but she's very needy right now. Can we see her? Yeah, she's sitting on my lap there. Okay, so like if we look at this one, does this have any? I kind of expected that you could do like dash template and it would just include one of these. But I get. I mean, it feels weird to like copy this as a template when they've got this create app thing. But maybe that is the way to do it. And they don't have any. So like if we look at Starlight, this is an official one. But they've got an actual like template that you can use. Like what if I just do this? Was hoping that it would give me more help than just throwing a harder skip Houston animation, choose Astro branch. See all available flags. Interesting. And like there's no instructions or anything for how to use the theme in the main page. Is that why everybody's just forking it? They don't realize it's a template, so they just fork it. All right. It seems like everything's here. We could probably just clone it. Maybe that's the way to go. And there's definitely nothing here, right? Get template. It just goes to the I guess. It is. So I happen to not be signed in, but since this is a template, within GitHub, you'd be able to click like use template. I guess we just clone it, eh? Just feels weird. Git clone. We'll just do that. Let's try that out. Open it up. I'll have to do an npm install. And MDX. Interesting. What's another one? Man, there's just so many of these. GitHub pull request and issue provider. I thought I had that one installed already. Okay. npm run dev. I'm assuming it's going to do its thing. Oh, it's probably a local host. 3,000. There we go. Okay. And I'm not, as I understand it, Astro, the update from Astro 2 to 3 isn't a big leap. I still probably would say wait for a 3.0 update on this if you're like doing it today-ish. Maybe wait for a couple days. But I think functionally for what we care about right now, it sounds like it's going to be pretty much the same. So we've got a bunch of utils. Note this happens to be TypeScript. We've got this, since everything is file. I think everything is purely file-based routing. There is this square bracket folder. What's the word for it? Expectation, paradigm maybe. And that's how they do like dynamic pages. So you set up a page at this blog, and this is like the template for it. So every page, every blog category page, the variables are passed into this, and you get multiple pages. So like these are the props that ended up getting pushed into it to generate the page, each page with this layout. We got some layouts. We got a markdown layout and a page layout. What does MDX look like? Page. It said it had markdown, or excuse me, MDX support. have a little bit of a cough. I would love if this cough went away, but you know, what can you do? So I'm not seeing any. We've got components, content. Okay, content, MDX. These are pretty straightforward MDX files with front matter. This is the style of the front matter is done with basically an embedded YAML, which is it's definitely a choice. And they do mix in Markdown and MDX specifically in here, where MDX is importing components, and the routing for them is pretty nice too. They've got this alias root, which is nice to see. Config. Oh, Zod. Interesting. So this is defining a collection of content. Z is being re-exported from Astro content, of which Z is, that comes from Zod. So Zod.dev is the website for that. And that's like a schema parser. I've used it in a couple projects now. I generally enjoy using it, so I don't mind seeing that. We've got a bunch of utils. Like slug conversion type utils, directories, front matter.js. This appears to be using a remark plugin. Get reading time. Get reading time. Yeah. Well, maybe not specifically a remark plugin, but they are defining it as a remark plugin, of which it's calculating the reading time. So that being said, do we have like a build script? What's wiring all of this together? Netlify, Astro config. So you have Astro compress, party town, MDX, Tailwind. Here's that plugin that we were talking about from the utils directory. That's getting fed into remark plugins. This is the Vite alias that we saw. Anytime you use the tilde, it's gonna do a path resolve for the directory name to source, which is nice. Compress does the image handling. Tasks. What is tasks? It is kind of nice to see that they're using .mjs. I appreciate that they're starting to look at making that conversion. So this is, whoop. Okay, come on. This is defining specific tasks that it can run. So it's like lifecycle hooks, it looks like. Which might actually be nice, because like one of the use cases that I would have would be like fetching content to be used in the build process. So if I'm writing an MDX or Markdown, or I've got, you know, a list of something. If I want to bring it in and show it on the website, I need to fetch it or pull it in somehow. Ideally, I like to do that at build time. You end up being dependent on the third-party system, which is definitely a downside, but not requiring you to remember to like trigger or use webhook or have something to like open up a PR to update a static file. I think it's worth that trade-off. Just fetch it at build time and be done with it. This appears to be doing a bunch of sitemap and robots text files, which looks good to me. What else do we got? Let's go back to that config file. Where are we? So integrations, icon, MDX, sitemap, Tailwind. Okay. So it appears that there's when you're running a build, it goes through a bunch of different like lifecycle hooks, of which you can hook into. So within this file, they're doing looks like they're outputting a name and hooks, and that's how all of these plugins I'm expecting hook into this. So you can, in this case, they're basically defining their own like custom plugin, which is dropping into this list of integrations. And they each have a set of hooks in which they will be run at that specific point in the build or dev process. So, where do we go from here? There's this navigation.js. What else are we actually importing? Define config. Reading time. Defining a directory name. Google Analytics set up here. So curious where some of these other utils get pulled in. So like if we look at what we're doing file-based routing. So if we would look at like pricing, we would go to pages/pricing. Or I'm guessing that pages directory is like the root. But there's also like landing/sales. Yeah. Homes. So if we did homes/personal. Okay. So anything in the pages directory, like the pages directory is the root, and everything is just routed off of that. I don't mind that as a routing strategy necessarily. This config is specifically for the markdown, or for these posts. We've got define collection. So we have to like set up these collections, and I'm guessing those get wired up somehow. Fetch posts. So there's the get static path blog tag. Wow. Okay. Generate permalink, get normalized post, load, fetch posts. So I feel like I'm missing a connecting piece here. Okay, we've got, let's close all of these. We've got a config YAML. And this is setting up metadata, and we've got additional config regarding that. I don't know that this is specifically Astro default or just how they've set it up here. I don't know. I don't know if I'm sold on this. It seems though that this is the way that you end up configuring it all. And how does this navigation then work? Header data, footer data. Okay. So these are high level like navigation, top bottom page type navigation. Some directory helpers. So if we look at pages, blog, then the I don't even know how to like say this. Square bracket spread blog, square bracket spread page. We get a page component. We can use that within the actual components. That comes from astro.props, which is a global, it looks like. We're importing specific components, and this is not, this is all like .astro file semantics. It's not, this isn't like an MDX import. Which, that being said, can we import, if we look at one of these MDX ones? Okay, so it is actually importing from a .astro file. So in MDX we can do that still, which is nice. They've got some like high-level functions before it does the actual, you know, to mutate the data before it actually gets rendered. And that appears to be where most of these like utils and whatnot are coming into play here. So like our index page is not going to do too much of that. It's just importing a bunch of components. We also have a markdown, which is using a specific layout. This is interesting. So this, I'm guessing, is a page that is purely defined as a function, which is kind of cool. So most of these are just going to be .astro files where they are calling other components. This is fine. I don't know that there's too much to see here. Okay. So we have a our package JSON has a bunch of commands, and then we have basically like two sets of config, at least with this templater theme. We have this Astro config, which is wiring up a bunch of the integrations. Those integrations all they're like plugins that define a name for the key and then the lifecycle hooks that it wants to utilize, in which it's going to run specific functions. So a little bit like middleware Express.js type functionality is how I'm thinking about it in my mind. And For those unfamiliar, Express.js is a Node.js, like pretty well established Node.js server framework. And then on top of that, we also have this config.yaml, which is a little bit more of the like user level config. We can give some metadata about the site. And then this .apps is path name tag category. I don't know if this is what's actually defining these. It might be. Like you might, to be able to do this like square bracket ... type syntax, I wonder if you actually need to have this set up. I mean, they show this as like a feature, add support for config and YAML. So maybe. And then this UI stuff. Can't say I'm particularly sold on that. Speaking of UI though, let's check out the components real quick here. So if we look at like headline, this is using a type to define some bits that we can use as props. TW merge is a function that takes basically these classes. So it's just straight away defining a bunch of classes for these components. Nothing too particularly involved there. I'm guessing Tailwind merge is just merging these class names in a little bit more of a structured way. So the question is, how is it using these tokens? I think that's the only other bit that I'm curious about this template, and then we're gonna look at Starlight real quick. Yeah, maybe give that maybe 20 minutes, and then I think we are going to call it. Where would the tokens be set? So you've got color. I mean, we could search for colors. Maybe it just shows up as a So these tokens are defining theme system. Ah, okay. So these tokens are kind of like defining these. I don't remember what they're called. Those called tokens? Which is a little bit more of a newer browser feature within the past, few years now. And you can define a color, and like this is effectively becomes a variable that you can use within your CSS. So you use this type syntax, and you've defined this color as a variable, and you can just refer to it specifically. So it looks like pretty much all of that is coming from there. That config to me still feels a little bit awkward, but I don't mind it. All right, let's go ahead and try out Starlight JS here. We are going to go to the main page here. This is a template or a theme built on top of Astrojs. I just realized I've got a vertical recording. I completely lost it. Oh, that's a bummer. I can press a button on my Stream Deck and it records like a vertical thing with the intent of putting in to like a YouTube short for others to consume the stream in a manner that doesn't require a couple hours. But my camera's not showing up there. Vertical scenes. Bummer, I was on the wrong one. Well, that's unfortunate. Oh well. This happens. Okay. So Starlight is a template or a theme built on top of Astro. The intent is to give you everything you need to build a documentation website. This is, I guess, in the vein of something like Docusaurus, which was and still is a pretty well-established documentation framework that also relies on React.js, and I think it still uses Webpack. And it was, you know, it was sort of the thing to choose years ago because that was the only option. And I appreciate that more options are starting to come out that you can more ways to build a documentation site. I always appreciate that. So we are going to, I guess, just do this getting started thing here. It will create a new project directory. So we'll go ahead and run that command. We're going to say Astro Starlight docs site. Sure, let's go ahead and install dependencies. Let it do its thing. And this is running through npm. So the newer versions of npm do install a little bit faster if you've been using JavaScript and TypeScript for a while. The speed has improved. Astro docs site, open, and let's go ahead and start. And we should get a site. There we go. Now, this seems to be pretty bare bones, which is fine. And some of this might actually be just because we don't have, I don't know, I guess. So it's got the sidebar and everything. Oh, we're also zoomed out a little bit. There we go. So it I don't know if I would qualify it as bare bones, but it's got the base that you need to like get some docs written, which is the important bit. Back and forth, sidebar with the docs, kind of a landing page where you can speak about the thing that you're writing about. Yeah, I like it. Is there anything that we want to explore with this? So if we look at, if you go ahead and look at the full file structure here, package.json, pretty standard amount of scripts, or pretty standard base level scripts here, similar to the other themes that we have looked at. There's the config. The config is setting up this Starlight integration. So it is like its own specific integration, which should make it easier to continue to update and manage. They have image processing set up with Sharp in this template specifically, but it doesn't seem to be directly handled by Starlight. So Starlight appears to be mostly handling the sidebar and like the routing part of it. We've got assets and docs, and then the markdown files. So it appears to handle markdown or MDX right out of the box, and we do have a config.ts. Honestly, I would prefer config.ts over like a YAML. Personal preference there, though. So define collection is coming from Astro, and we're defining 2 schemas. Now that might be specifically a TypeScript thing to assist with the like TypeScript helpers. We are setting up a title and description, and then a hero. And if we look at our defined collection, we're defining a docs and okay, it's coming directly from Starlight. So we're defining a docs schema that they have set up, which is you can see in the overlay here is odd. So we could potentially extend that if we would so choose. And then international language support. So for Tori, when we were first deciding what framework to use for documentation, there was a couple bullet points that we wanted to hit. And language and translation was a big part of that, and versioning was a big part of it. So those 2 things that dictated much of the actual choice. So when we were making that decision, there was basically no other framework that could support both versioning and language support, and that was something that we felt was important. So seeing Astro Astro plus Starlight support the languages right out of the box, I think that's a big part of the reason that that makes a transition of this possible, for at least for the Tori documentation site specifically. So I appreciate that. It doesn't seem to have anything specifically about versioning, which isn't the end of the world. The way Docusaurus was handling versioning is when you would run their command, it would effectively just copy the content and put it in a nested root. So you could potentially do something very similar. I don't know that unless if there's a very big change from one version to the next, sometimes it warrants that type of version handling. But I almost prefer to have living docs that as you develop and add features, that you note next to the feature or the place where you're making the adjustment in the docs themselves, what version this was added at. So that would allow somebody to go to the latest version of the docs and see if I need this feature, what version do I need to be on, or do I meet the requirements to use this right away? So then somebody's always just looking at the most recent version of the docs. Again, that gets awkward when you have a very large set of breaking changes. And I think in that case, you can kind of just copy and paste, and you have a file that like lists deprecations, or you have like a deprecated version of that documentation that then points to the new thing for those that are upgrading. So I don't mind this. I'm glad that they did language support. I don't think it's the end of the world that we don't have like version support like right out of the box built into this. If only for Tari, but just in general, that feels like a reasonable approach. Not too much else in the README. I don't think there's all too much else that's going on with this. So what ends up being interesting about this configuration is that we could do something like, we have docs, we set it up and configure it with this. We get a does that go to the main site? Okay, so there's a landing page here. Which I guess is just the stocks. I assume we have a little bit of flexibility in like having a different landing page. Collections. Where is collections used? Nowhere else. So I'm guessing that's just like magically wired up. So I guess that would be my only question, would be do we have flexibility in changing the homepage? Or I mean, it's here, we can change it. Oops. But if we went, if we wanted to have sort of our docs at a separate like URL or sub like not subdomain is not the word, but like /docs, I'm guessing we can do that. They just don't have it hosted like that right now. So like if we did something like content posts or something, we just see what it gives us for options here. Custom CSS. So you can give it a CSS file to modify the look and feel. So that's probably going to be the big thing that I've seen with Astro, is that it feels like it's a little bit more opinionated on styling. Or less flexible in what styling option you choose. For me, that ends up not being a real specific issue, because I tend to use CSS or Tailwind. If you're using one of the other flavors of styling, though, that might end up adjusting your considerations. Locales, logo, pagination. So it doesn't seem like we get I don't specifically see a way to, at least from like the files that they give you, way to adjust the file paths. Now it is all just file path or file based routing. So I'm guessing it's possible. Let's go check out the docs real quick. We'll jump through the docs, see what other options we have, and then I think that's where we're going to call Manual setup, configure collections. So collections seem to be a larger part of Astro. Astro is built on content collections, which are configured in src content config. So the src content as a top level folder appears to be like a built-in expectation. So you have to have it in src content. I don't mind that file structure though, so that's not a deal breaker for me. Tips for existing sites. Okay, using Starlight at a subpath. So we could do docs guides. So we have a content docs that. So we could do something like content docs, which feels a little bit funky, but you know, that's an option. I suspect for most use cases though, that's not going to be that big of a deal. But what we're kind of expecting here is that we get, with Starlight, we get the structure and the components to have a doc site quickly made, and you could throw in something like blog posts through like default Astro type functionality. And I think that's going to be nice for setting up and maintaining doc sites, because it's part of the value of Docusaurus was that we could have a nice looking documentation site that we could generate and start building off of quickly without having to like build the whole world and maintain a you know, like a full bespoke website. So a bunch about the authoring, which makes sense. That's all. This is gonna probably be more around MDX support. So like they've got this, so that's all MDX or Markdown type support. Using component. So they're already coming to the table with Markdown content. I'm guessing we can make adjustments to that with that custom CSS. And this is the type of thing too that Docusaurus did, which I don't mind. It's kind of a necessity, but then the difficulty comes when you want to change or modify what those components are doing or look like. And I think that's part of what ended up making Docusaurus complex, is as soon as we wanted to go off of the default path, you're starting to like copy all these components, and the maintenance burden continues to almost balloon. So this year's I'm going to be interested to see like what kind of customizability we have with these components. Tabs, cards. And this gives a lot of what we would need. I think depending on how specifically you want to get with the customization, that might dictate the need or not to use these components. And see, like you can add Starlight to an existing project. So it's going to use some of the Tailwind theme config in the UI. So I'm presuming it uses Tailwind then. So if you're okay with like their components and what you can control through Tailwind, this is probably going to get you pretty far. So you can like control the colors and whatnot. It's going to be like the feel and the UX part of it that is probably going to be more difficult to actually control. Oh, that's kind of cool. They've got the just built in. Table of contents, social links. So we have some ability to customize. You can set the locales. And I'm guessing what we end up doing is, yep, we've got a separate folder for these different languages. Which is probably going to be the best way to handle that. In that case, you could use something like what is that called? There's the website where you can push up your docs and it gives a UI for people to come in and help translate the docs. And I can't remember what that's called. Crowd something. So how they have it configured seems to work pretty well with that. Configuration. What do we got? We can do title, description, logo. This is what we were looking at before. You can set up sidebar with like top level labels, it looks like. And then from matter, edit URL. Okay, so you can have a different URL than what comes in by default. Okay, so we get two different layouts. We get a doc or a splash, which is more of a landing page. Hero, banner, and that ends up being how they control the two different like page types. We got like the landing type page, and then we have the actual like documentation types page. Okay, I think this is I'm going to be interested to see this continue to develop. I think it's a great start, and I think it's going to cover a lot of use cases. I think it handles, or appears to handle internationalization well, and versioning isn't specifically considered, but I don't think that's necessarily an issue. And all of that considered, if you're okay with the level of customization you can do through their integration with Tailwind, this is probably going to get you really far. And it seems that once you start moving off of like the default path, it might end up being a little bit more involved to customize or have custom components. But at that point, you're kind of rolling into like bespoke website territory. And this is built on top of Astrojs, which has that expectation that you can do, or it's more flexible where you can do those type of integrations or type of websites. So I think this is a really good base to start from, and I'm feeling very good about it as a choice and alternative to something like Docusaurus. I am definitely happy to see it around, and I'm very curious to see where it goes from here. So I think all of that being said, I need to, we got a hard stop here. So I think we've covered everything we want to cover. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. we will, we've got some things planned for the coming weeks, or in the process of being planned, and I'm excited to explore more like low-level Tory stuff, and hopefully bring some guests on. But we're not doing it this week. Maybe not next week because of the holiday. Monday is a holiday. But stay tuned. I'll see y'all next week. Bye. Not being right back. Let's try that again. This one. Bye.